This episode of Author Stories is brought to you by the Writing Mastery Academy. Founded by Jessica Brody, author of the best-selling plotting guide, Save the Cat Writes a Novel, the Writing Mastery Academy features online, on-demand writing courses, including the official Save the Cat Writes a Novel companion course, novel fast drafting, crafting dynamic characters, and productivity hacks for writers, to name just a few, plus monthly live webinars on various writing topics. Go to jessicabrody.com/Hank to learn more and get your first month of unlimited access to all the content for just $6. That's right, just $6. jessicabrody.com/Hank. You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Ford,
Corey Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mom,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Sherlyn Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is... Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm super excited to have Kris Clink on the show with me today. She has an amazing new book. It's called Goodbye, Lark Lovejoy, and this is the first book in the Enchanted Rock series. I know you guys are going to love this, and I'm super excited to chat today. Welcome to the show, Kris.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to come on.
You are so welcome. I've been looking forward to this. Kris, we begin each show with the same question, and that question is, what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or storyteller?
Well, I think that I've had this question a couple times, and actually several months ago, I finally hunted down the book that inspired me, and I think I might have been second grade or so. But I found it on a used bookseller's website, and it was The Little Leftover Witch by Florence Laughlin. And there was a cool story with that, is that there was a inscription on the inside. It looked like an old library book, but a child had written in pencil, Ryland Burnett, please return if found, thank you. So I took that opportunity to look for that person, and unfortunately, he passed away in a plane crash a couple years ago and has no family. And I was looking for some family because I thought that would be really great to be able to return that book to him. But it was a book about a little girl who was left over after Halloween, a little witch. And so that's the book I kind of keep on my desk and remember that's how I became inspired to write. And the next few years, I had two really great, back then they called it language arts teachers. And when my galleys came out, when my the early copies that we get to look at, when they came out, the first two that came out of the box went to those two teachers. And so it was really cool hearing from them after they read the book.
That's so cool. Kris, did you have designs to... Did you know early on that you would tell the kinds of stories that you do now, or when did when did the storytelling gene sort of wake up and you knew that, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to do?
Well, I've always been a storyteller. I've always written. There had been an ongoing joke in my family for years with my husband. When I write a book, that was the beginning of a sentence that I said hundreds of times. But in my past careers, I taught speech at a university part-time, and I was an educator for a hospice, and I ran a nonprofit for 6 years. And in each of those jobs and several volunteer projects, I got the opportunity to write, but it was more like, it was technical writing. So my name wasn't attached to whatever I wrote, but it was fun to be able to tell those stories for, like, say, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation was the nonprofit I worked for. And to be able to tell the stories of our children that were affected by type 1 diabetes was in a bit of a way for me to funnel that need to do storytelling in a day-to-day basis. But I always wanted to do more than, tell little stories here and there. I wanted to tell stories on a larger format. And so years ago, I thought I would do something more mystery suspense. And when I finally began writing full-time at 46 years old, after my husband said, "Kris, you're 46. When are you going to write this book?" It was a great time for me to quit my job and write full-time, and that's what I did. But the story that I told wasn't suspense. It was just more of a story of the heart and home, and it was something that, I felt like I needed to tell, the stories of everyday people who are really everyday heroes.
Kris, I love to hear the stories of, what got people to where they are now. And a lot of times it's a very circuitous route. And some of the experiences that we pick up along the way, you wouldn't think, this would lead to novel writing. Now, your work in communications is a clearer path than some people have. But looking back on that time now, how do you feel like the work that you did, either as a technical writer or your nonprofit work, how do you think that maybe prepared you for the kind of things that you do today?
Well, I think you have to, looking at, some of the PR materials that I did for the nonprofit, you're telling the stories of I said children, but we also have plenty of adults with type 1 diabetes. But you have to get in their shoes a little bit and think about the story the way they want it told, and something that would be helpful to the mission of the organization, and not necessarily, oh, pity me, but look at what I can do, but look at what I could do if we could get rid of this disease. And so, it's a two-pronged deal, because you want to get in their shoes, but you also want to be sensitive about it and not make it where they feel more vulnerable by having their story told. And I think that translates to novel writing, because you definitely want to get into those characters' shoes because you're telling their stories, but you also don't want it to be a two-dimensional flat cartoon that, oh, this is the villain, this is the sad person, this is the victim. You need to be able to show that depth and show their sensitivities as well.
When your husband gifted you that laptop, did you have a story in mind already? And I know that you said that you kind of threatened for years, when I write my novel, it's going to, this is going to happen or whatever. And a lot of us kind of make those threats along the way. But was there a story brewing already when you sat down to write that, or did the act of sitting to write, did that, cause a story to be born?
Well, I'll tell you, the Lark story was born in 2007. My husband and I and our younger children flew to San Antonio. Our oldest was in a musical down there, and she had some time one afternoon, and she wanted us to load up and follow her to Green, Texas. And I'd never been to Green. And I wanted to get back to San Antonio to do more shopping and, see what there is to be seen in San Antonio, because there's plenty. But it was really important to her that we go to Green. And we got out of the car, and it was a cute little town, like a lot of little towns in, the hill country and around San Antonio. But I saw the water tower that said Green, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Green isn't spelled like the name, and it's a German name. But she took us to the grist mill for lunch, and it's an old mill, and we ate on the deck overlooking the Guadalupe. And it was just really special. It was a special afternoon, but afterwards she wanted us to walk across the little courtyard to the Green Dance Hall. And this was the middle of the afternoon, and I thought, oh, why are we doing this? And if you've ever seen pictures of the Green Dance Hall, it's very, it's not like there are no flashy lights or anything like that. It almost looks like an old barn in a way. nicer than that, but it's whitewashed and pretty simple. But when we walked inside, the floorboards bent beneath my feet. And I knew that day, and I said to my husband, I don't know what the story is, but when I tell it, it's going to happen here. And I carried that with me since 2007. I didn't start writing this book till 2015, 16, somewhere in there. And there's a line in the book where the main character says that when she walks into the green dance hall, the floorboards bent beneath her feet. And it's like the building had a life of its own, and you could almost sense the people that had been there before. And it's one of the oldest dance halls in the country. And all the walls around the bar are lined with autograph photos of, everybody from George Strait to Garth Brooks. And I mean, just everyone in between. It's really impressive. So for such an unassuming place, it has a lot to impress you. But that really struck a chord with me, and I carried that for a long time. And I didn't know my characters. I didn't know what was going to happen. But later on, I think seeing movies like Hope Floats, I knew my stories needed to have a heart like that. Something where, I said, it's almost like my main characters are walking around, living their life and going through whatever everybody else is going through, and somebody pushed them on the train tracks and yelled, run. And they're running and running and running until finally they figure out, I don't need to run. I can, step aside and let this train go by. And in my books, that's what happens is, we meet them when they're running and they really don't realize that's where they are. But then they get to a point where they come into their own and they know, I don't have to run anymore. This is who I am, and they get to be their own hero. And so that setting in green really kind of set the tone for that. It was a simple place, but it had so much potential. And I think that kind of speaks to most of us. We tend to be simple people. And I mean that from top to bottom, whether you live in New York or you live in Austin, Texas, or wherever. But there's more to us than you can see just right offhand.
So from this simple setting that was so ripe with potential, when did Lark Lovejoy walk onto the stage of this story?
The week I started writing it, when I actually sat down to write it, Lark was, I guess a couple months before that, we had gone to Key West and seen Hemingway's house. And I don't know why, but from then on, I got the idea that I wanted my main character to be like a bird, kind of that she takes flight. And for a while, her name was Wren. And I decided I liked Lark better because I could take it in. She's actually named after her grandmother. Her grandmother's last name is Larkin. And so that's her name. And the last name was something that had been calling to me for a long time. And even in the last few years that I had worked for the diabetes organization, when I would text my children or my husband and I would type love you at the end of a message, it would autocorrect to Lovejoy. And it did it so much that I told my husband, I said, is there something am I supposed to see a sign here, or what is this? And so I knew when I started, we were definitely going to have the Lovejoys, because that was I took that as my sign that I needed to be doing what was authentic to me, which was writing.
That is so funny. So what was it about Lark's character that stood out to you? I know that you said there were some character traits that you were thinking about, the connection with the bird and things like that. But what was it about her that made her three-dimensional in your imagination?
Well, I think that she was somebody who, when you look at where she came from, Fredericksburg, Texas, which isn't far from Green, and she was almost like Little Miss All-American, and she had life on a cracker and could have done anything. And she went away to college and to study winemaking and viniculture at Texas Tech. And so she was going to be a winemaker, and then she goes to California for a summer internship, and it didn't go so well. And so here, this girl that has it all has to go do an internship where it's kind of a boys' club, and she's the only girl, and they joke about her being getting her MRS degree, and so she was already kind of jaded about that. And then 9/11 happened. And her mother kept trying to push her to do something more traditional. And so she ended up going to law school. And so, in taking somebody who thought she knew what she was going to do, and then she switched gears very quickly. But she still looked like the person that had it all. And I think we see Lark, we meet her when she's just lost her husband to ALS, and you can have it all and not have anything. And I think that's really the message with Lark. Was she was somebody who from the outset looked like she had everything, and yet there was a big gap in not only, from losing her husband, but also in not following her passion from early on. And we see that in the Wyatt character as well. He was younger than Lark at 9/11, but he knew that he wanted to go in, he wanted to do something to defend us from a young age. And so he went to Texas A&M and was in the Corps and went straight into the Army and then was injured. And so he thought he was going to have this Army job for the rest of his life. And now he has to go back and rely on the degree he got in electrical engineering. And so, these things happen, and everybody's dealing with, the stuff that gets thrown at us. And so, those are kind of the messages that I was hoping to communicate with this book, is that, everything that we're all going through something, and we all get to be heroes sometimes too.
Authors, I have a fantastic new service to tell you about. It's called PubSite. PubSite is a service to help you build your very own website, your home on the web, where you can promote your work and give your fans a place to connect with you. PubSite is a website platform that allows every author, regardless of budget, to have a great-looking professional website developed by the book marketing professionals at FSB Associates. PubSite is the new, easy-to-use DIY website builder developed specifically for books and authors. Whether you're an author of one book or 20, or a small publisher, PubSite allows you to build, design, and most importantly, update your website pain-free. No need to be dependent on a designer or webmaster to make a small but costly change to your website. Save the money and do it yourself. PubSite is the best platform for authors because it's a book-centric platform. PubSite was built just for authors and small publishers. Every design, feature, and layout is book-centric. They have customized designs for you to use. It's easy to build. No coding or HTML is necessary to create a stunning, professional-looking website with all the features you want. Get a custom domain name, yourname.com. It's simple to update. You can add all of your books, add a blog and a book tour, sell from any retailer, manage your email list and social media, and even do e-commerce. Build your website with a 14-day free trial, then pay just $19.99 per month, which includes hosting. And we offer packages starting at $499 to set up the website for you. Pub-site.com, the place to help authors find their home on the web.
The storyline of Lark's husband that she lost to ALS resonates very deeply and seems to me to come from a very authentic place. Do you personally have a connection with someone who's suffered from ALS or some other life-altering condition?
I had a friend in my, I would probably say, when we were all raising our kids were all pretty young at the same time. A friend that when I was diagnosed with MS, not long after that, she was diagnosed with something, but they really didn't diagnose it early. They didn't know, they wouldn't put a name to it for a long time. And she would say, gosh, I wish they would just tell me I have MS. And at least then I could take medicine for it like you do. And so as time went on, things got worse. And, this was a woman who was just incredibly bright and talented. And she was painting a mural for her children's school, and when she lost all the function in her right hand, she began painting with her left to finish it. And so she was someone who was very inspirational to a lot of the young moms that knew her. And so when she passed away, I kind of keep those memories with me, and so yeah, I wanted people to understand that. And I have a friend that I worked with at JDRF who now runs the I think it's the Upper New York chapter of the ALS organization, and so I really, I've tried to support them and support people who are suffering with ALS, like my friend Lee.
That's amazing, and this book is not focused on that, but the story is absolutely informed by that, and Lark's journey, learning to kind of wrestle with that, but then not lose herself in the process is something that I think a lot of us, whether it be ALS or some other thing, we all have some sort of challenges that we, are faced with the choices. What are we going to do with this? Was that an important thing for you to have Lark to wrestle through?
Definitely, especially, as time goes on and she's in this relationship with this man who he's lost his leg, and he has beneath his clothes, he's very scarred, but you don't see that day to day. And so, but what he's really hiding is not the scars on his chest and on his body, but, he's carrying PTSD, and that's something that when she learns what the potential is there, she's very protective of her children, and it scares her. And in trying to understand that, she finds that there's a whole story. Her father, who was in Vietnam, for the first time, he talks to her about PTSD. And so it was really an unraveling of Lark trying to understand, deal with her pain, process her lover's pain, but then unknowingly stumble into her dad's. And so it goes back to that theme that I think Lark says in the book: we all have scars. Some of them don't show, but we all have scars. And so that followed that theme.
One of the things that Lark encounters and kind of becomes a sort of a theme for the book is the vines at her parents' house. What did the vines mean to you?
Well, I mean, it was something that she and her father had planted, this little, line of, I can't remember, it was like maybe 20 vines beside the house when she first told him that she wanted to explore winemaking, because that area, a lot of people don't realize that the Texas Hill Country Wine Trail is an area that's very lush with grapevines and wineries all over. And so it wasn't quite as, it hadn't grown up as much when Lark was growing up as it had when she returns. But when she told her dad that she was interested, he helped her plant this line they built these trellises and they planted this line of vines. And so here she comes back at 38, and the vines are just a mess. It looks like a, bunch of, I think I said it looked like a bunch of wire hangers all, tied together, trying to get them undone. And so she sees that potential, and now she's looking at it from a more mature view. And now that she's come back, she's seen how the Hill Country Wine Trail has just bloomed. And it's almost like it's in her face, that alone, that the business has grown. But then to see those grapevines by the house that have just been abandoned, and it strikes a chord that what's abandoned is, she's abandoned that passion that she carried when she was younger.
When you first started thinking about this story and the character of Lark came to you, how long did it take for for the character of Wyatt to come in? And was this a natural progression in your mind, or that came out of what you were already thinking about, or did you know that there needed to be a Wyatt, and then figuring out where he comes in? Did I guess what I'm asking is, did you have this character and this interaction planned out, or did he come about because the story told you it needed to happen?
That Wyatt was there almost instantly. I had been thinking about a character to play off of Lark for a couple months before I started writing it, and so Wyatt was there. I mean, the first day I started writing, he was on the page. The character that came to me kind of by surprise was Bianca. I woke up at like 4 a.m. one night, and I guess that would be in the morning, and had to get to a notepad and make notes because I could see, hear, and I mean, I sensed Bianca and as this long lost best friend from childhood. And she was I had so much fun writing her. And so, she was somebody who, again, is more than you see off on the surface. She was someone that's real sweet and caring, but she has so much, her sense of humor just made me laugh sometimes writing it. And I don't know where a lot of her lines came from, but they showed up just when I needed them.
When you're thinking about all of the characters that that go in this story, Lark has some interesting interactions with her former in-laws, and they factor pretty heavily into the story, into her personal growth. What made you want to bring in that angle?
Well, I think that when you tell a story, you should be sensitive to your readers. And to me, that story was a story that would hopefully resonate to people of all ages. And so I was very purposeful with the ages of all of the characters. I wanted Wyatt to be just on the edge of the millennial curve. I wanted Lark to be just, middle-aged. And I wanted to be able to include the next generation. And so, the loss that Lark suffered was terrible, but it wasn't just her loss. It was also, James, her husband's parents. And so to see how that plays out in the days that follow with the way they're managing, getting the kids back and forth to be able to see the grandparents, I thought was important. I mean, I thought if I'm reading that, I'd want to know, how is this impacting the parents? Where is the rest of James's family? And so that's kind of where that came from.
Gotcha. Kris, do you consider yourself a pantser or a plotter? When you start thinking about a story, do you do all of your work ahead of time before you start drafting, or does the story kind of grow and evolve with the writing?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm very ADD. So if I didn't do an outline, I'd probably be in trouble. So before I start writing, I do an outline. That's not to say I don't veer off here and there, because stories do that to you. But yeah, I definitely start out with an outline, and there are times that the story starts to veer off, and I have to bounce back to that outline and go, where was I going here? and pull myself back on the road, because it can happen pretty easily.
So, how detailed an outline do you make? Is this like chapter by chapter? Are you doing character sketches? Like, how detailed does it need to be before you say, okay, now I understand the story, I know where we're going, and then you can start the drafting process?
Well, I've been kind of lucky because, well, yeah, okay. Let me back up and answer that question.
Yeah.
I do character sketches, and I do a scene outline, and really try to get the main scenes. And I'll make notes that, you might want to include another scene, not something that's not really as detailed, but just a note so I can remember that I had that thought. But the Lark book, I've spent 5 years writing it and however much time thinking about it before that. But my second book comes out this next fall, and it's part of the series. And so the beauty of writing, the Lark book has a lot of characters, and that's on purpose because it's the first of the series. And so I'm currently writing the third one in the series. And so as far as getting to know the characters, there are new characters that come into the second and third book, but there aren't as many. More so, we're exploring some of the main characters or the minor characters that the reader has met in the first book. So it's been a little easier. I'm making notes now for another series, and so now I'm having to kind of start from scratch again.
So, you're working on the third book in the series. How have these characters changed for you without giving, anything away, obviously, of what's coming next? But, what has there been like big character growth that you didn't see from the beginning?
Oh, definitely. And, one of the things I really enjoy doing with my characters is taking characters that the reader really doesn't want to like from the beginning, and giving them the time to reveal themselves and reveal either how they became that grumpy character or that unlikable character, to the point where the reader, I hope at some point, will want to understand and get to know that character even better, and have a better understanding of where they've come from, and also to see them develop, because sometimes I like to put a character that's very unlikable at the beginning, and then towards the end, hopefully the reader will embrace that character now that we understand a little better why they felt that way or why they acted in a certain way.
There's no better feeling than knowing that you've painted a character in a way that people don't really like them, and that you have built a rapport and a relationship between the reader and this character by the end of it. That's the magic of writing. That just it's just fun. Magical. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. The new book, Goodbye, Lark Lovejoy, is available everywhere now when you're hearing this, and I highly recommend that you go out and grab it. Kris, if people are just discovering you and want to dig into all the great stuff that you do, where can they find you online?
They can find me at krisclink.com. It's KrisClink.
Excellent. We'll put links to your website in the show notes of this episode, as well as links where you can go out and grab the book today. Kris, it's been so much fun chatting. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your interest in the book, and look forward to doing this again, maybe with the next one.
Absolutely. Authors, if you're looking for a partner to help ensure that your book is the best it can possibly be, look no further than Pico's House. Crystal and her staff make a conscious effort to be critical yet courteous. They also strive to make the business side of things run smoothly so that you can rest easy knowing that your manuscript is in capable hands. Whether you need beta reading, developmental editing, a manuscript critique, line editing, copy editing, or proofreading, Pico's House is the one-stop shop for you. Check them out today at picoshouse.com to get started. Are you looking for software that helps you bring your novel to life? Novelize is a web-based writing app which allows you to access your work on any device with a browser and an internet connection. Write from your desktop, laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Just get the novel written. Say goodbye to sticky notes. With our notebook on the side, you can keep track of all the important information you need to write your novel. We keep distractions to a minimum, help you track your progress, and encourage you to write more novels. You can even use the same notebook for your novels in a series. Outline, write, or organize your novel by switching between modes. You can write your outline notes while you're writing, and you can move scenes and chapters around anytime in the organize mode.
Choose between the dark and light theme to help prevent eye strain so that you can stay immersed in your book. Novelize, the app for writers by writers.